These are 12 facts about War Games, the 1983 film that quietly changed American history, and most people who have seen it still do not know any of them. Following a teenager who accidentally connected to a military supercomputer and nearly triggered a nuclear war, this movie hit a production story that was stranger and in some cases more consequential than anything that ended up on screen. The history behind the screen holds fascinating details. Strangely enough, this iconic hacker script started out as something completely different. Writers Lawrence Lasker and Walter F. Parks built their early draft around a story they called The Genius, drawing inspiration from physicist Stephen Hawking. Instead of a teenage hacker, the protagonist was designed as a brilliant, physically limited scientist living in isolation. Lasker and Parks even approached John Lennon about playing the role, but his death in December 1980 forced the entire concept to be rebuilt from scratch. Computers and hackers had already entered the picture before his death, with writers actively working on a draft that featured both the scientist and a teen hacker. The W.O.P.R deserves a closer examination. The hulking military machine at the center of the film's tension was actually built to house a person and equipment inside. To create the illusion, the production team built a plywood shell, painted it with a metallic hammer-tone finish to look like metal, and mounted a grid of blinking lights across the surface. Behind that prop sat a concealed crew member. Instead of flipping switches for the lights, which were automated by custom circuitry, a concealed crew member used an Apple II computer to manually type out characters on the display. Every time the computer appeared to process a command or run a simulation, that was a person doing it manually from a stool in the dark. The clever trick made the most feared machine in the story nothing more than a carpenter's project finished with metallic paint. Because officials at the real NORAD facility in Colorado refused to allow any filming on their grounds, the production built its own version from scratch. Building the replica command center cost exactly $1 million to construct, earning it the title of the most expensive single film set in Hollywood history at that point. To dress the walls and workstations, production designers sourced decommissioned control panels from NASA missions in the 1960s. This gave the space a density of authentic instrumentation that no modern prop department could have produced from nothing. Those workstations incorporated genuine aerospace artifacts, though the large screens and the central supercomputer itself were clever movie magic constructed by the crew. Those screeching, layered tones accompanying every modem connection in the film were not recordings of the physical hardware. Audio engineers built those sound sequences entirely from constructed elements, because the hardware sounds a dial-up modem produced at the time were too quiet and flat to hold an audience. To keep viewers on edge, the finished soundscape needed to feel fast, mechanical, and slightly threatening. As a result, every time the film's computer connected to a remote system, it carried a tension the genuine technology never possessed. Audiences heard danger where the standard equipment offered only low electronic noise. Well before production started, the studio arranged for a full Galaga arcade cabinet to be delivered directly to Matthew Broderick's home. He spent 2 full months practicing the game before cameras rolled, so that the arcade sequences would read as effortless rather than performed. That level of preparation was not typical for a prop-based skill in a film of this era, and it showed. The Galaga scenes carry a casual confidence that works precisely because the actor had put in the hours. This small credibility anchors the larger story of a kid who operates comfortably inside a world most adults found incomprehensible. During a sequence that lasts only a few seconds on screen, Broderick types the word Joshua into a computer terminal. Director John Badham called for 47 separate takes of that single moment. Performance or lighting had nothing to do with the difficulty. Because Broderick could not type well, The production crew devised a special computer program that automatically fed the correct text to the screen no matter which keys he hit. To get around his lack of typing skills, the crew rigged the terminal so that no matter which keys Broderick pressed, the correct letters would appear on the screen. This relentless perfectionism reveals just how many invisible problems live inside simple-looking scenes. To sharpen the hacking sequences, Lasker and Parks consulted with pioneer phone phreakers, including a man named John Draper, widely known as Captain Crunch. Draper earned that moniker by discovering that a toy whistle packaged inside Captain Crunch cereal boxes produced a tone at 2600 Hertz. This happened to be the precise frequency AT&T's long-distance lines used to signal an open trunk connection. By blowing that whistle into a telephone receiver, a user opened the line for free calls across the country. Draper had essentially turned a breakfast prize into a telecommunications exploit. While another hacker named David Scott Lewis inspired this film's main character, Draper's lateral thinking would later shape the hacker characters in the writer's 1992 film, Sneakers. Listening closely to the voice of Joshua, the film's central artificial intelligence reveals a flatness that lands somewhere between synthetic and hollow. Director John Badham achieved that quality by having the actor deliver his lines with the sentence order reversed. Reading words out of sequence strips away the natural cadence that humans build unconsciously into speech, removing pacing, emphasis, and warmth from the delivery. After audio processing, the final result felt distinctly inhuman rather than simply performed, so audiences registered the discomfort without being able to identify the source. This brilliant technique cost nothing while producing something that no amount of electronic filtering alone could have replicated. Those animated sequences showing missile trajectories arcing across world maps were produced specifically for the film by computer graphics pioneer Colin Cantwell. The production utilized custom vector graphics and animations created in the early 1980s using Hewlett-Packard HP 9845C computers. Since that material had been built for analytical purposes rather than public consumption, placing it in a wide-release Hollywood film was a bold move. The fact that it appeared without any public commentary on its origins reflects how little civilian audiences understood about what Cold War military planning looked like from the inside. During development, the production team made a deliberate choice to use an IMSAI 8080 computer for the Protagonist rather than seeking modern corporate mainframes. Instead of relying on corporate donations, the filmmakers focused on building props that fit the narrative, independent of any major tech company's brand concerns. Because actual modern computers of the 1980s did not look visually intimidating enough for the screen, the design team had to invent several fictional interfaces to match the stakes of the story. Accidentally, those fabricated elements ended up looking more visually compelling than anything in IBM's current product catalog. In the end, the company's caution produced, quite unintentionally, a better-looking film. Just one day after WarGames opened in theaters, President Ronald Reagan screened the film at Camp David. People present at subsequent briefings reported that he raised the plot directly with his Joint Chiefs of Staff. He asked them whether a teenager could realistically access military systems the way the movie depicted. When the generals told him yes, the sobering exchange fed into the drafting of National Security Decision Directive 145 in 1984, establishing the first formal U.S. government framework for protecting federal computer networks. A film that started as a script about a scientist and a rebellious teenager ended up reshaping the legal architecture of American cybersecurity. Before WarGames reached theaters, home computer modems were a niche product that most households had never considered purchasing. In the months following the film's release, however, retailers reported that modem sales climbed by 500%. teenagers across the country wanted to replicate what they had watched on screen, dialing into systems, locating hidden networks, and treating the digital world as a space without enforced boundaries. Rather than simply reflecting where technology was heading, the film pulled an entire generation toward it. Several of those teenagers who picked up a modem during that window went on to build the infrastructure that defined the internet era. WarGames turned 40 in 2023, and the questions it raised about automated military systems, machine logic, and what happens when human judgment steps back from the controls are sharper now than they were in 1983. Many of these facts catch viewers completely off guard. Leave your answer in the comments below, hit like if the video delivered, and subscribe so you do not miss the next one.